couple of years ago, we had maybe one webinar a month, and they were all live, of course, prior to COVID. And now it's just so many things that we do every week. Just a couple of them running. So just want to introduce Clifford Samuelson to you guys. Just reading the bio quickly. Clifford, he's been in the data architecture space, especially for the last 1.5 decades. He's operated as a senior data specialist, senior enterprise information architect, and data architect. And his focus was mainly in the financial sectors, but also expanding into oil and gas, online gaming, etc. And he will be leading the talk today on gamification of data governance. I'm looking forward to it because I'm at the moment busy with a data governance program at Ayoba. I don't know if you guys know them. It's a very interesting company, and it's just interesting to see how data governance actually, it's such a broad topic. So you have to really focus on what's really required at that particular project for that particular company in that context, and you almost have to start not from scratch with the data governance program, but you actually, if you want to make it work, you have to really customize it. So the gamification aspect, I'm quite interested in that. So looking forward to that. And with that, over to you, Clifford.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot for that one. Thanks for the introduction. Everybody, thank you for the opportunity to actually present this to you guys. Please feel free to contribute, add to it, disseminate it, use it whatever way you like. Used it before, it worked really well for me. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask me questions. Also after the session, feel free to reach out, and if you got any questions or anything in particular. And I just want to say to Marguerite and Drew, thanks for you guys' input. I really appreciated what you guys did. Really, thanks for that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the presentation. I'm going to share the presentation. If you want to stop me during the presentation, please feel free to do so. I'm not very emotional about things. I only got one emotion, and it's hungry. So I haven't got a problem if somebody interrupts me. Okay. So just tell me if you guys can see this.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so it says basically an introduction gamified data governance program. It's specifically focused as a community-driven project or program, and it's supposed to be fun and really easy to do. I'll show you now. It is not difficult to do. Once you get the buy-in, the momentum starts picking up by itself, and then it starts driving itself. What you basically need is just a DMBOK framework, and then you can actually shape your entire program according to that. I think everybody in this forum knows that and can appreciate that. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump into a bit of a philosophy on data. Just one note, I do have flu, so if my voice sounds a bit bad, you can't hear what I'm saying, just let me know and I'll repeat what I'm saying. Okay, so first of all, the philosophy of data. Great. So this is something that I've heard before. It served me very well through my career, and I really like the trend that I read through this. It says data will always be a living, breathing organism, infinite in complexity, active recording of the universe. Within resides all the answers to all the questions, with infinite depth of knowledge, primary intelligence, one of a multitude of constellations of intelligence. Knowledge increase in this age was prophesied 2,626 years ago, in 604 BC already. You must ask yourself, how blind are we? It makes you think about what do we use data for and what we can actually achieve with data. And it's something that I always have at the back of my mind when I start addressing data and looking at data. Okay, so let's look at the fun stuff. So what do we want to achieve? First, on the left-hand side, what we want to achieve capability maturity of a level 5. Later on into the deck, I'll show you guys what's the scales that I use and how that reference to whatever we're doing. Then at the bottom, we've got enterprise adoption. Those are the two axes that we're going to be focusing to drive the adoption and to get some metrics out of how we're actually going to be driving, what's going to be our plans, how we're going to attack the plan, and then how we actually then going to achieve. You'll see we'll progress right through there from data, which is the primary intelligence. So it's the bare basics, the bare bones. Then we move into more intelligent structures. From there, we'll go to the knowledge, the secondary intelligence. It's more intelligence. It's not intuitive that much. It hasn't got so much structure. We can actually address whatever capabilities we have there and start molding them for the future. That's where we get to the primary intelligence, where we actually now become, as you know, it starts becoming predictive, accurate, where we actually can use data science and machine learning, NLP, exactly the way it's supposed to be used when we get to that maturity. So what we have here, what it comes down to is basically a framework that progresses us through this path to get to the wisdom path, primary intelligence and beyond. Now, with a governance program, what it does is it actually takes this journey and all the content that makes this whole framework work, it actually makes it fun and it makes it consumable from grassroots level right through the organization. So what we're going to do next is just look at the basic definition of gamification. And I'm going to show you in the next slides to follow an example of how you actually can take this and actually land this inside the organization. So gamification in context, and you can go and look online or any resource that you like. It is basically taking the elements of gamification, gameplay, normal game, any game you can think of, and then taking that and converting that into practical usage within a specific capability you want to drive, where you then start creating really healthy competition inside those frameworks, but then also reward structures. And the biggest, for me, the biggest gain out of that is the learning curve. You get a very high learning curve and adoption rate, specifically because people now get interested in what you're busy doing. In any community, if people are not interested, you start losing momentum. It's not long, then that community will die. And in this case, that's exactly what gamification does. It's a real world, in today's world, structure that actually consumes the modeling world and then takes also the gaming world and brings it as part of what you are doing day to day. It sounds very complicated, but you'll see an example. It's really simple. It's really straightforward. And you can actually land a program like this in a couple of months. The point right at the bottom, gamified data governance is a true value add, transformational. It's very important, it's transformational, community driven, non-invasive framework. So it is not going to be something that we're going to cause a lot of disruption in the organization. We're actually going to be molding it around the fluctuation of the organization and how the community drives it from there. Community drives the continuous development process, enhancing the true business value proposition, participation, learning, and holistic enterprise growth from grassroots level up. So what you're going to be having is you're going to have normal start to your program. And then as the momentum starts picking up and the reward starts coming up and the display board start coming up, you're going to start picking up momentum. And then you've got to be ready for when that consumption of knowledge starts happening. What you also want to do on the other side is make sure that you now get your information resources in the organization. You start growing them so you can generate your next generation of information resources for your organization. So typically, what would we typically do? Okay, so what I've done here is I've taken basically just operations. Okay, I'm just going to walk through the slide right from the top, and then I'm going to walk you through how we actually land that. So first of all, is a good framework to actually start with the company culture. You look at if there's current avatars that is being used inside the organization right now, you can theme it according to those structures. From there, once you've selected your avatars that you want to use for your capability, so you'll assign an avatar to a capability. That will immediately create synergy between the company culture and what we are driving. If you pick the correct one, it's not difficult. Usually they screaming at you inside the organization. These avatars we'll use to construct the game we'll be playing. Okay. Then the gaming that you're going to be doing is you can decide what game you want to do. You see at the bottom here, what I've done is basically I've used the example of a journey builder. So you can build a journey. We'll get to those two slides now here at the bottom. Or you can have a map builder, castle builder, whatever you want to achieve with this, you can actually do that, which makes it a lot of fun. A lot of people also use specific, let's say people want to do a castle builder. You can also do that. And I'll show you the tools that you can use for this. It's also really simple and really affordable tools. And it lands a lot of value very quickly. Okay, there's no limit to the avatars and game combinations that you can play. What I would recommend is pick one set of avatars, assign them, and use that as basically your calling card right through the organization. So when somebody does see something of that avatar, they will know, for instance, it is related to operation. Each capability gets assessed, or you get assigned obviously a specific avatar. Capabilities can be grouped under different subsections. That just makes it easier when you roll it out, and also for your administration. So for instance, if you look at what I've done here, so I've got three basic groupings. I've got standards, insights, and operations. And then the capabilities are split underneath each one of them, which makes logical sense. That in return, you then can use as when you start measuring specifically on your capabilities and the performance of the organization. Okay, each capability will have maturity and enterprise adoption level 0 to 5. You see on the right-hand side, that's a basic scale that I use. And then you got your colors that you associate with that, which then starts giving you the ability to then actually start coloring specific dots, or if you've got a specific icon that you use for your capability, it becomes really easy to assign those colors then to them as well. And then these two metrics will then provide a business unit capability measure as well as the enterprise. So what you want to do is you want to have the capability to actually measure your capabilities. And then you want to be able to roll it up into an enterprise-wide metric, where you can say, for instance, let's look at the example right at the bottom here. So I've used operations. So I've assigned an avatar there and says data security. Once we've gone through the assessments and we've done the assessments of where they are, actually we realized that they on level 2, so that will be between 21 and 40%, and let's say they're currently on a 29%. Then you'll have your data storage and operations. On the assessment, they're on 76%, and then your data modeling is on 55%. Now, in your gamified world, usually what we used before, we used actually we use SharePoint to just create these maps, which are really simple. Yes, Paul.
Just a question. So the levels of where people are and so on, what did you guys use to determine that? Well, how do you give that initial kind of level of scoring?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So what we've done is we actually took a capability, let's say data security, and then we created a pool of questions on what we would see as the bare bone basics of data security. So once we've created that pool of questions, the community then that has been assigned as data security resources, they will then go and pick some of these questions out of the pool. That's one thing. And then the next thing what they'll do is they'll actually change some of these questions, or they'll add questions to the pool, which then in return adds to the value that we're adding to that pool. And that's how we got to how we measure what is level 1, level 2, level 3. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that's what I like about that is there's some interaction from the people themselves to choose what should typically be living inside of a capability, right? Did you use the DMBOK deliverables at all for that?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Was that your starting points? And then,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we've done is we use DMBOK basically as the framework, and then what we'll do as data architects in those specific areas, we would then, sorry, we would then start and build up some additional questions that we know out of practice, and then we'll put that into the pool as well, which worked really well, because now what would happen is, as these resources start growing in their maturity, they then start adding more questions to that, or they start altering questions, which makes it fit for that specific business, which makes it then immediately they bought into the process. Now they're part of this journey, and that is exactly what we're driving with this whole community drive. Is everybody can contribute, everybody can make a difference.
I think that's such an important aspect, because obviously the DM block has got a lot of deliverables, but some of them just don't make sense for a particular organization or team, or whatever the grain is. And we see that when we do the maturity assessments, based on the DM block. Sometimes a lot of the conversation just goes into, but what does this actually mean for my team or for my department or whatever? And sometimes it actually just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I think that customization is a really cool idea.
You know what, I see it worked very well. And what it also does, it cuts out a lot of unnecessary work. And if you can take that away from a process that is quite burdening and scare a lot of people, then it starts becoming fun, because then they start focusing on the reward and the fun. And they actually go and say, oh, you know what, I created that question, which works really well for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and then, okay, so what we have, so under operations, so what we've done there is we've taken the averages of each one of those, and then we will have operations average of 53%. So that means we on a level 2 of operations. So the first one that we got here on the map, where we've got data security, storage, and operations, and data modeling and design. What we have there is you'll see each one of these different capabilities are represented on them. So you'll see, for instance, the level 2, where we have basically the data security, they're on their journey. So the whole idea of this map is they need to progress right up to the ultimate level of level 5. For them to get there, they need to progress through these different gates. Now, you'll also see then data storage, they're already on level 4. And then 3, you'll see it sits on the right-hand side, the modeling side. So each of them would have started very low, and then they will build their way up. Which is great about this is they will decide what is applicable to them, and then they will also decide what's going to be the next standard, or what's the next target that they're going to be hitting for. Now, if you look on the map just on the right-hand side, what you'll see there is you'll then see right through the organization, you've got an operations level of 53, you got a standards level of 86%, and you got an insights average of 53%, which then it's exactly the same philosophy. All the only difference is we've now rolled up each one of those business units over those 3 to the organization, which then gives you your overall score for the organization, which makes it really effective, because this map you can display on FITS displays right through the organization, and you use this also to start drawing. For instance, you have marketing and let's say sales. Marketing is on, let's say, level 3, and you got sales that's on a level 4, and now there's healthy competition because they want to get up to the same level as sales, for instance, to drive that. And then suddenly there starts becoming this healthy competition of guys want to achieve. When you start throwing in through your assessments, I'll talk to that a bit later on, is then what you want to do is you want to then start giving out rewards. And then you'll see right at the bottom here, first of all, we use the SharePoint as for a map, which is really good. And you can also use that to actually do your campaigns. You can create your pool of questions there, also your basic content of what is needed there. And then something that works really well is you create T-shirts for the teams. So for instance, you get a data operations associate, a warrior lead, to all those levels. People really love that. People like having that T-shirt that gives them a kind of status. And when they go up into the levels, you get really, really high levels. There's a real big competition for people to actually get those specific t-shirts. Yes, Paul.
Just a question from ST here, but before I read that, ST, I'm sure you've got an idea of making dice specifically for this game. So then people don't have to be honest and so on. You just roll the special D&D dice, right? But it's then it's not Dungeons and
Add
Dragons.
some
It's
charts to
data.
it.
Yeah, so Dungeons and Dragons, it's data and
Data governance?
Dragons.
Data and dragons. Data and dragons would work.
Yeah, ST, do you want to actually ask a question?
So I know you're saying rolling everything up into an organization view, but is it the team that fills it in or individuals that fill it in that then rolls up to the team and then they roll up to the organization?
Okay, that's a very good question. So what you do is they construct the assessment, the team, and then the team will do the assessment. It gets validated by, for instance, data architect, just to make sure that they are actually measuring the correct things. And then that would then show up as the specific business unit, their level, and that would then roll up to the organization level.
And then,
Mhm.
and then do you keep track of the deliverables for a certain organization compared to another organization so that you don't ask this operations team question that they've marked as irrelevant for their situation?
Yes, because what you do is you actually let the community. So let's say a marketing team, that's the marketing data team that's responsible for that data. They will select from the common pool questions that they want to use. They want, if there's a question that's half of this, they can actually then take that, change it, and then submit it to the question pool, and then they can select it from there. Does it make sense?
Cool. Yeah, very cool.
Right. Then reward the teams and knowledge levels will enhance momentum. You can use simple things for rewards, like the t-shirts works really, really well. Some other things that also works well is just open recognition. Some companies work really well on vouchers, free giveaways, a phone or extra bonus or something like that, but that you got to negotiate with your business users. With business, it becomes a very good, difficult conversation if you want to get value or investment before you actually commit to actually delivering anything for them. I'll show you now one of the examples of how we've done it before, which worked really well, where we could actually go over and actually start getting that value proposition investments from them. Very light investment in the beginning as a reward structure. And then from the next phase to where we're going for is to actually then run it into more sustainable rewards from the organization. So it's a very fine balance you have to keep your business investment running, to get that little bit of a wallet share as big as you can. But you'll see as you start delivering, then suddenly the game starts changing and they start investing more into your world. Okay. Then move on from here. Okay. So what I've done is these are some basic rules that I've picked up over the implementation of a framework like this. And some of them sound really funny, but it's actually not. It is really, it holds true in the practice. So your senior stakeholder buy-in is crucial. You need to get your charter and you need to get it signed off. You need to get it published right across the organization in usually some sort of a display board that gives you the priority that you need. What would happen with that is what I've seen 9 out of 10 times is as soon as the CIO gives you the stamp of approval, then suddenly the conversation becomes much easier for you to actually get focused on what you're trying to achieve. Next point there, ensure you relate your achievements to business value proposition. One basic example, which is really easy to do, if you do it in a gamified way, is let's say data operations, storage and operations. You can actually then, for instance, you've identified multiple copies of data across the organization that's not needed, you can consolidate it. So what you do then end up with is you can then basically, for instance, as an example, say we've reduced a specific set of duplications of data by 15%, now, which is really easy to measure. Let's say you got 10 copies of the same data set, and then you do proper modeling and structure. You then consolidate your set from there, and you end up with a 15% saving. Okay, so that resulted in operational overhead reduction cost of 3% in resources. So in other words, less people having to do the same thing to transform the same data and invest time that's not needed. Storage cost saving was 17%. Now using saving the same data multiple times for no reason. And process streamlining, let's say, 7%, which makes it quite easy for you to actually then calculate. Let's say instead of us taking 20 hours to get to the end game, we can actually we take 3 hours to get there. Those kind of examples. And once you start driving those kind of mindsets and thinking about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it, and people actually start understanding data and what it sits, how it sits in the organization, things just start moving, first of all, slowly, but then they start picking up momentum. This will provide you with the opportunity to negotiate for wallet share, maintain business investment in the program. Okay. One very important point, people laugh at this, actually to be funny, but once you get to the Eskimo stare, okay, you got to realize that you missed the objective. Okay, so the Eskimo stare is like people that have a stare in their eyes, like an Eskimo that sees a fell fire. And you know that look when you start. Yes.
We would like you to illustrate this, please. So you must turn the camera and show us
That's
what
not
this
fair. That's not fair. That's
Yeah.
not fair. So yeah, okay, yeah. So what we get there is, you know, when if all of us know that feeling when you talk to people about data, and they just lay over, you've lost them. If you overcomplicate this, you make it difficult, you're gonna lose your audience. Don't overcomplicate it. It's really easy. Just keep it simple. For us data people that tend to get toward purist kind of thinking, doing everything perfect, we gotta guard against that. If you do that, you're gonna get into too much detail and you're gonna lose your audience. Do not ever call it governance. Whatever you do, don't call it governance. Use something else. Use, sorry, we've used information program, intelligence program. Please do yourself a favor. Any millennial that hears the word governance will want us to run away. In their minds, that is pure evil. Just stay away from it. Call it anything else. Okay. Reward. Okay, it's very important. Make sure that you make it fun. The whole idea of games is you reach a level, you do something, you get a reward, a small little thing, a token of appreciation, recognition. Those kind of things. It's part of a game. You need to drive it through your program. And there's very creative ways how you actually can do that. Really not too expensive, and it's a lot of fun. Remember, it's community driven. The community must drive the development. Don't take over for them, enable them, give them, do the heavy lifting for them, and make sure that they actually have everything they need and guide them through the process. But let them take the lead in what they're busy doing. Use systems like SharePoint to do your content campaign assessments, as well as your map. It's really inexpensive. You can use a simple map that you can get anywhere, and then to enhance that with layovers is really, really simple. Remember also, it has to be fun. It will enhance the experience as well as the buy-in from everybody that's there. Next point is very important. The heavy lifting of the content must be done by the IT people. So what that says basically is it takes that data and all that information from the inbox, it disseminates it into real simple portions that they can consume. And it gets put into the SharePoint in a manner that we teach them how they actually, what's the recipe? How would they create, for instance, a question? How would they create a campaign? Simple things like that. But if you're going to give them the inbox and you say, okay, give me the first 20 questions, it's just going to fall over. Nobody's going to have the energy to deal with it. So let them do the heavy lifting for you. Okay. Road shows for me was a key building block in achieving buy-in. So road shows usually company-wide first road show and then business unit road shows. Road shows usually something that is a lot of fun. You have goodie bags, you have lots of stationery you give away. You give basic t-shirts away, pens, earphones, lots of music, lots of loudness, lots of fun activities. We had a theme of a marketplace, which worked really well. Everybody wanted to have a t-shirt, and then suddenly everybody wanted to be part of this data journey that we're doing. You should be able to analyze, design, build, and implement the program, including the road shows. All in all, I'd say 7 to 9 months. One specific program we rolled out within 6 months. It's really not that difficult. Typical resource pool that you'll look at per business unit, usually two BAs, one data resource is enough to take the content and actually disseminate it into usable artifacts inside your SharePoint for your teams to actually then consume from there. And then the last point there is make sure that you cover operational excellence in your program. It's a big ticket for business, future investment. Usually within these programs, what you get is the big focus on your capability maturity and then bringing the resources on par with their ability to actually deliver. They forget about the operational excellence. Operational excellence for me is like the little gold mine on the side. Once you make that part of your program, you then actually have specific focus on operational excellence. And that would be something like you're doing your BAUs, your programs, any initiatives that's running, any data problems that's really burning in an organization. You go through a normal process of finding those out, getting them in on a specific forum where you actually start addressing them. As you started achieving those, you'll see your business buy-in starts climbing, because now they actually start seeing the value of what you're bringing to the organization. And that really worked well for us in the past. So just what I've talked about now, you got a basic structure of how it would fit together. Again, I have to reiterate that operational excellence on the left-hand side for me was a very crucial part of actually making sure that we actually deliver and we get buy-in from our key stakeholders, our senior stakeholders. It works really well for me. If I look down the line, for instance, we had data quality problems that was lingering for a really long time. As soon as you can actually start going or getting onto that focus area where you start addressing those specific issues as part of your program, then suddenly you have a real value that you can sell with what you are achieving within your maturity inside the organization. And then some basic practical steps. So you got your information strategy, you've got your business strategy, information, tactical and strategic, and then you got your charter right at the top there. Usually a good cycle to follow, either annually, biannually, quarterly. It all depends on what's the cadence of your organization. Is your baseline, that's where you do your assessment to find out first time where are you in the organization, on what level, per capability. Then you agree with the team and the business units on the action plans, which then makes them part of the journey that we're planning. Then we execute on what we're doing. We measure what we've done. If there's some fallouts, we remediate them. Then we actually reward. You can do it annually, biannually. It all depends on what you want to drive and how you want to actually drive it. You don't necessarily have to drive everything on exactly the same cycle. But if you want to reward and make it enterprise-wide, it's usually a good idea to keep all of them in sync with the same. What you then start off with, usually the initial and the kickoff is just once off. And then from there, you just go to the continuous process. So initial is you do your content structures, you create usually your portal where you're actually going to be doing your enterprise information management. You identify your specific resources. You agree your reward structure, your learning structures, your races and your roles and responsibilities, and you capture it inside your SharePoint. Usually your BAs that you got in your business units, they're more than sufficient to actually achieve that. And then you got your kickoff, you got your enterprise roadshow, your business roadshow. You do your baseline assessments from where you are right now within each one of the teams. They decide what's their baseline they want to test, and then you agree on your action plans. From there, you got your continuous process, you got your content enrichment, you got your best practices, market trends, business learning. That is now when, for instance, there's a new trend or a new capability, or let's say data interoperability that expands a bit more, and we want to bring that content into the organization. That's our continuous development process. We introduce it to the teams, and then we create some questions for them, and then they start on their journey all over again on that specific enhancement. Also, as they grow and they get certified and they actually start reaching more maturity in themselves in the data space, then you will see they tend to add some new questions, add some more content by themselves, and then start bringing that to the bigger group. When we assess some baseline, we agree on the action plan, execute, measure, reward, or remediate and reward. Usually that's a cycle that keeps on running, but then again, this is not set in stone. You can decide how you want to do that, how you want to drive that through the organization. Then you also see, because it is transformational, what we're doing is the focus of the operation shifts a bit. It becomes transformational. You'll see the customer becomes the center of everything. On top, you'll see, well, it's basically the way of looking at it is the very hierarchical way. If you look at transformational, the communication structures and the way that we address things, it is built by community, driven by community, informed by community. Then there's a simple example that I just put in here at the end. You'll see, for instance, as a great example, Trailblazer from Salesforce, built on the same basic construct and concept. They also use gamification. You will see their roadshows, their reward programs. It all gears towards the same mindset. It's also gamification. They just put it on a different level. In construct, if you look at the concept, it's exactly the same that you're seeing here. And then that's it. Any questions?
Thanks, Clifford. There's a couple in the chat. Esther, why don't you just go ahead and read yours?
Okay, so one of it is, do you normally get people in the company to suggest the names for the program? Or do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, a good idea is to actually, when you start with this program, is to actually get everybody involved. Let them decide what they want to call it.
And then how do you manage to actually get the time and those resources assigned? Like, do people actually get time to participate, etc., like thinking of a corporate structure? Or is it just, you have all this work and now you have this extra work type of situation?
Okay.
How do you handle that?
Okay, so what we've done there is, with the heavy lifting, we've done all the hard work for them. So then we've agreed with their specific business unit that those resources will be focusing, let's say, a 5% or 10% of their time on those specific tasks that needs to be completed. So if you look at the heavy lifting that's been done, then it becomes a real easy process. It's not that difficult to do. That's how we overcome.
So you almost do the negotiation up front, almost to say, okay, this is what it needs to be to look successful. Otherwise, it's not going to work so great.
But I do also believe that because there's quite a big gap in the market of understanding of what we do, once they start understanding what we're doing and how they're going to get the benefit, then suddenly they start opening up a bit more.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe somebody else can go next. Otherwise, I want to know, like, if we can see the application. Like, I didn't know SharePoint can do stuff like that, for example. I know SharePoint lists and stuff, but the gamification part of it itself, it'll really be a database in the back end.
Okay, I haven't got access to any portal from where I'm running doing the presentation. But what you can do with SharePoint is you just get a basic, let's say, world map, if you want, or country map usually, and then you can actually just get usually somebody in the creative team, they can build you little icons that they actually just place on that, exactly the way I did that. Let me just check here. Maybe I can show you guys.
That first, or is that second slide?
Let me show you what I've got here. Oops. Okay, you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so for instance, in this scenario or here, you'll see these, sorry. So we can, for instance, from here go and let's say we want to quickly create something. It's going to be, it might be a bit confusing, but I don't think it will be. Let's say we want to take this avatar. Let's say, let me change this now. You can, for instance, let me see, give me a second, can get this into a bit of a presentation.
And while you do that, Clifford, just something earlier in your presentation that I think that people might relate to is when you said, call it something else. The word governance is not always received well. I do think that it's probably because it's being used a lot. It's probably losing a little bit of its teeth or the scariness of it. But I agree, just finding another name. And I had the same thing when I presented on master data management. I had the same thing. So if you can manage to call it something else and not master data management, so that it aligns with some sort of an actual project that has a business goal in mind or the implementation of a system in mind, you just have less baggage to work with, right?
Yeah.
Especially MDM, it's got a bad rap. Large organizations have tried it often a couple of times, and so you just have to find a way to to do the same things, but do it under a different banner or under a. I mean, it sounds dishonest to say it like in disguise, but you kind of have to because you have to avoid the baggage.
See, my opinion on that is it's not actually for me. I don't see it as honest. I just see it as making it more consumable for the people that's actually going to be doing the job. Because the whole focus is let's make it work. If somebody don't like the color red, then let's just make it purple. And if they love purple, they're gonna do it. It's for me that's about the focus where we're going.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
What I can do is, can I show you guys here?
Yeah.
You guys see here?
Yes.
What you see? So here you got a basic map, but here these are that you add onto here. So you can go and you can actually then start changing these to whatever color that you want, or you can put a different icon on there, or you can, if we take away, let's say we take away.
And that's then linked to the data items in the back end for like if somebody's 20%, they might have 2 buttons filled in.
Exactly.
Or if they are 40%, that have 4 buttons filled in or whatever.
Exactly. You can then, if you get something basic like this, you can use stars or whatever that works for you better. And then the creativeness of this is you can do it whichever way you like. Usually a castle builder works very well where everybody's got a castle. And then we got icons around the castle. And then obviously the different colors gives you different levels of achievement. And so then you don't have that many icons that you have to move around or change. Now those are the little quick fixes that you can run through this. And you'll see the graphic guys, they get really creative with this very quickly. You gotta at some stage time, whoa guys, just relax. They start going all ape on this and you don't want that. but it's really easy to get a map like this and on SharePoint. And then you can imagine if you want to put in your whatever, let's say, let's look at this. What say? Let's put in here something that says you are on.
You're gonna have a D&D map ready, ST?
Yeah, definitely that.
You can do this. Exactly. That works really well.
Howard's question is maybe going to be relevant here. Clifford, he asks, how did you actually do the measurements, or how do the people measure their progress?
Okay. Okay. So just a quick one there. We'll answer the progress one there. They obviously, if you wanna, also you'll use better colors. I'm not very graphical client, and then you can set it up like that. So what we do for measuring is we use this scale. And then what we would do is we would make sure that we can measure them by capability. If we look at this slide again, which would make more sense, I think. Once I can give you a bit more detailed explanation of that. Is basically we measure on we create the question pool, we measure on the question that's been decided, and let's say they get on this capability on data security, they got 29%. So that tells us that they are actually on level 2. And from there, each one of these capabilities, obviously, we're not going to ask level 5 data security questions on level 4. We'll ask it more down, more less expansive for level 1 and level 2. Okay, does that make sense?
I see Howard is nodding. In Saudi, they, you have to get your head back into the Western world and into English. So Howard's taking a bit of time to get that process. That's what's happening there.
Oh, shots fired.
That's fun. So your capabilities, are they related to the DMBOK? There was someone else who asked a similar thing. What is your set of capabilities?
Yeah, so you'll see that the capabilities we look here is exactly the same capabilities in DMBOK. It's now the older version DMBOK.
Yeah.
But from there, you take the capability, the inputs, the process, and then the outputs, and then you construct your questions out of that. It's really easy to get a lot of questions from, let's say, data architecture, just as a basic level 1. You just start capturing questions that you think, and you get the teams involved, and they start capturing questions. You got your BAs, they look at capturing some questions. It doesn't take long, then you suddenly have a pool of data architecture questions that is, let's say, 100, 200 deep. And then from there, you obviously just run your campaigns. It's really easy to do the SharePoint campaigns. You schedule them, you select them, which ones you want to run, and you run them. And that once they've been answered, that gives you where you are actually. The good thing about that also is it gives you exactly where's the gaps, where we need to focus on next to get the biggest achievement. It gives you basically your target list, and then the community decide what they want to start targeting first. So let's say there's a gap in security, or in the storage. Let's take an example. On storage, there's a lot of duplication in that specific storage segment, and they decide they want to target that. From the assessment that we picked up, then we actually start focusing on that. We get the action plan, we agree on it, and we go for it.
So I'm assuming you're not this is really just questions and you testing the knowledge, but not really the competency. So it's not related to work that they do.
It is. What you do is the question that you ask is from your capability. So let's say for instance, on your, let's say the storage, you ask a basic question of, let's say for instance, what is your current data storage on a specific, let's say for marketing, and then what is the duplication inside that specific data storage. So that will be something that will be specific towards that business unit. So it will take what is in the framework, and it will, because it's been created specifically on a focus for them. So it's about their world. They will answer in the context of their world. And then because they're also constructing these questions, they 9 out of 10 times go and they start altering those questions for you. Does it make sense?
Okay, so what you're doing, for example, let's take a data modeling and data modeling. So would you be talking about what is the model of this data mart called, whatever it is. If you in sales, it will be your invoicing or your purchase orders or your whatever quotes that you've dealt out. Would it be specific to your data models, not really at a meta level or an abstract level for the domain?
Yes, it's all going to depend on where the community is at. So what you're going to be doing, for instance, in that example, we would say, for instance, your data mart that you have currently, let's say they've got 5 data marts. What is the normalization of those marts? Is it 1, 2, 3, or let's say 5, or we maybe got a 12 in there somewhere? And those are going to be the kind of questions that you're going to be asking them, and they're going to be constructing. So from that assessment, you understand exactly what is the normalization of those structures. Let's say on what is the retention of those structures. What are you going to be, from there you can pick up, is it modeled correctly for what it's needed? You don't want to do this.
So as an example, so what's interesting there is new people coming in, they probably couldn't answer most of those questions, but they'd have to learn about the systems until they start to understand what's going on in their business unit.
Yes. What you'll see, usually the data people that you identify that wants to become part of this journey, because they've got a support of a data architect with them, or a data person that will guide them, is it makes the journey much easier. Sorry.
Okay.
So because you do the heavy lifting for them.
Okay.
It is a journey, and once you start with it, it actually becomes a lot of fun.
Right. Oh, thank you. It's great. Thank you.
And it's a pleasure.
Yeah, I think what didn't come is maybe through that clearly is earlier we also discussed the starting point is actually the DM block content. And what I really liked about what Clifford said is some of those questions are then altered or changed, or some of them ignored or some added, depending on what the context is for that group, whether it's a department or a team or whatnot. And I think that's, I was just thinking back when we do the maturity assessment, sometimes a lot of the conversation is about what does this actually mean for me? This doesn't quite make sense, or this and that. And that process of actually interacting with the question and adjusting it perhaps to be more fitting was quite an interesting angle that Clifford took.
Yeah.
Clifford, just one question for me. I might have missed it, but so the data governance program and the goals of the program itself, at what point and how does it get connected to the business strategy and goals at that point in time? How do you do that?
Okay, so what works really well is driving it via the usually the architecture review board, or whatever governance structure sorry, that they've got running inside the organization, because that's usually driven, the data strategy or the business strategy is usually driven down from this. Sorry, just give me a second. Sorry, it's bronchitis killing me. Anyway, so driving the strategy into the organization, usually within the architecture board, that's where it actually gets connected.
Okay. Cool. All right, let's just see. I think we have dealt with some themes. You've mentioned a few. That was by Nisha and then Prayesh. Did you focus on a specific data practice? I see data storage and ops. I think you mentioned that too, right? Here it was just sort of you just zeroed in on some specific ones.
Yeah, I focused in just on operation, but you can call it, I just took standards inside and operations, but you can decide how you want to mix them up.
Yeah.
Does it answer your question?
Prayesh?
Yeah, thanks. No, that answers the question. Thank you. Happy with that.
Cool. This got another one. What is the largest and smallest enterprise you've implemented this at?
Well, the biggest one was probably, I think globally, probably about 5,000 people. Yeah,
Nice.
Wow.
yeah, yeah. And this was rolled out globally, and we even sent them their welcome packs, their goodie bags, and it was online for the roadshow, the big Luno roadshow, which worked really well. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So you really have to put your back into it. If you're going to do goodie bags and so on, but that also shows commitment, right? It shows it's not just lip service, and it's not something that's just being pushed through. There's actually good thought and motivation put behind that. So,
Yeah,
uh,
and yeah, what I liked about this was once the people started understanding it, they started becoming part of the journey, and then they started adding the questions, they started adding the ideas, and then we started having different types of rewards and different levels of learning. And then, there was one t-shirt that was like, you were the bee's knees in data if you had that t-shirt. And I tell you, people actually almost had fist fights to try and get to those t-shirts.
yeah.
So once you get that momentum going, then you get a lot of buy-in.
In terms of smaller enterprises, is there like a level that you think an organization size-wise needs to be before something like this becomes viable?
No, I think any organization works very well, specifically in, I think, in the world of today. You get a lot of millennial structures and mindsets coming through. So I believe this becomes much more relevant as well. And because people relate to that, because it's a big part of their everyday life, the way that they live. Yeah, I don't think there's a limitation.
Cool.
Nisha, you have your hand up?
Thank you. And thank you for this session. I think the timing is so spot on, perfect for us. I have two questions actually. So the first one is what you're showing us here seems to be very static using SharePoint. It's, you get a picture, get a theme, put it on SharePoint, try and see how you're going to represent your achievements and growth in levels. In my mind, I've also had experience and thoughts about something more interactive, more user. It's like an application. You're actually interacting through an application. And we do have a portal within our organization that is mobile, integrated to our mobile capability. So is that something we can use as a channel if we want to get really
Definitely.
creative?
Definitely. You can decide how far you want to go with this. You don't necessarily have to use SharePoint. SharePoint was just a very cost effective way for us to do, and we had a lot of creative people available. So that made sense for us. But in your context, it sounds like you've got a very strong capability on the mobile side. So maybe looking at integrating this to a mobile app, and the structures that are associated with that might work really well for you.
Okay, thanks for that. Then the second question is, so maturity on one hand is with, the users of the data, the business data owners. But on the other hand, it's also about the actual, so us as a data governance team, for example, would be also measured on how well we put out processes, standards, guidelines for the consumers. And we want to mature that part of the practice as well. So I'm assuming we can incorporate both into this gamification.
Yes, exactly. That's spot on. So how it would usually work, you'll see you'll have a continuous development process. Just get down to that slide quickly. Just go there. You'll have in this continuous process, I've got a slide on that that's much more explanatory. What happens is, as industry practices change or you add new standards, that new standard then goes into that stream for that community. And you would say, for instance, listen, here's a new modeling standard that we're introducing and that we're looking at. And then you start unpacking it with them. And then what you usually do is because you got the understanding and the knowledge, you unpack it for them in a very consumable manner, and you give it to them in chunks that they can consume and start working with. And then you'll see as soon as they start getting it, they then start adding their content or a different angle on how they think. And I mean, I didn't think it was possible, being a data person, thinking that somebody can tell me something about data, but I was actually shocked how much I learned from just sitting back and giving them the small bit, and them actually coming back with great ideas and suggestions and workarounds. So that might work for you as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just one thing that you said that sticks with me, Clifford, is just, don't overthink it and start simple. And even frameworks, they're good for guidance, but if you try to follow them too rigidly, there's a lot of traps in that. Sometimes you just have to, because I know, for example, the project that we're busy with Harvard, is also involved there, is they have to put something down and it has to be replicated across the whole government. So you kind of have to then be pretty, I guess, rigid with at least the framework part, right? So there might be a little bit of nuances and customization as you start to deliver things within the knowledge areas, whether it's data architecture, data modeling, or etc. But just to keep it simple and relevant, even if it's almost, maybe especially so, even if it's just the baby steps initially, so that people get into the mode of understanding what they're doing, understanding the importance of it, and then what you mentioned also, just the rewards and so on. I think once you get that balance right, it works really well, and you've proved it, so that's good. So just really useful. Let's see. Are there any other questions? Fit for purpose, yes. Any other questions from the floor? If not, then I have one last question.
I also have one last question.
You can go ahead.
What, just interested in what is the time frame for something that you've shown us to get out, implement relatively, let's say phase 1 is started with a very small group and get all the users interacting and so forth. So what's the time frame around that?
I'll put in here before, it's about I'd say 7 to 9 months. I've done that one implementation in 6 months. That was with the roadshows and the content and everything on SharePoint rolled out. But I must say the senior buy-in was very strong, and they supported it and they threw their weight behind it. But yeah, it took us 6 months to get it in and running. To get from initialization phase, selling it to business, I'd say you add about a month more. And then from there, actually doing the work and rolling it out, you get to your first baseline assessment. I would say 6 months, 6 to 7 months if you just focus on it. If really, it's not difficult. I think once you get the biggest thing for me was obviously the graphic side. The what's the avatar? What does everybody else think about it? What do they suggest? Once you get past that, then it's easy because it's what we know, and then it becomes easy to fill in those pockets for them.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Pleasure.
All right, thanks, Clifford. My last question is, I always have to ask questions about people's facial hair. So, in what way did your mustache help you in your consulting and your driving this program, if at all?
Oh, it definitely helps immensely. I mean, a lion has got to have mane, and what can I say?
Nice, man.
It always
all
becomes a
right.
discussion point.
Yeah. All right. That was really informative and refreshing for a traditionally boring topic like data governance for many people. So Clifford, just thanks a lot. Really appreciate that. I think it is well received and well appreciated. So thanks so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. And people can get in contact with you. Are you available for consulting, or are you employed permanently? What is your situation?
Yeah, I'm permanently employed. But I'm really happy to help anybody. I'll help you wherever I can.
Okay, cool. So we can get in touch with you via LinkedIn and so on.
Yes. Anytime.
Awesome. Debbie, anything from your side? Do you want to?
Everything is amazing. Thank you so much for this presentation. It was a really great one. Lots of laughs, and yeah, I really appreciate this. I'm sure a lot of LinkedIn is going to thoroughly enjoy this recap post. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who joined.
Thanks, everybody.
All right,
Really appreciate
everybody.
it.
Yes, and enjoy your Tuesdays then, and have a good week further. See you soon. Cheers.
Cheers, you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.